going to run through a couple of, like an outline of what we're going to talk about tonight, and just a little bit of the process. The Town of Winchester Zoning Board of Appeals meets tonight in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, and other applicable laws. There is a sign-in sheet on the table over there. If you haven't signed in yet, please do so. We need this for administrative purposes. WinCam is here televising and recording this hearing. Tonight's hearing will be conducted in the following manner. The legal notice will be read into the record to open the public hearing. The petitioner or the petitioner's representative will present the subject application to the board. ZBA members will be given an opportunity to ask questions. We will read any correspondence received from town officials and accept those correspondence into the record. And we have to discuss our peer reviews. That's for design, traffic, various matters. So we're going to have, we'll have outside peer reviewers, and we'll be discussing that with the petitioner to coordinate that. We'll probably schedule a site visit, and we're going to schedule the next meeting date. Moving forward, not tonight, but moving forward, interested parties that are part of different town boards and committees will be given an opportunity to speak and ask questions. In advance, I ask you to reach out to Carla McGrath in the building department, because she will know what peer review we're discussing and what we're discussing at that next meeting, and whether or not it would be timely for that board or committee to also be participating in that discussion. So just give Carla plenty of notice and coordinate that through her. We will also read in correspondence received from any parties in interest. And tonight we will be giving the public an opportunity to speak. You need to, when you speak, you need to address the board and give your name and address for the record. I will be limiting remarks at the time of remarks, and I would ask that you limit it to 3 minutes, please. We're going to put an end time on this meeting tonight at 9:30 p.m. So now we are going to open the public hearing with the reading of the legal notice.
Do you want me to wait for, give Rude a minute or two, or?
I'd say read it in.
You're fine.
We're fine.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that the Winchester Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a special public hearing on Wednesday, May 21st, 2005 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board Room at Town Hall, 71 Mount Vernon Street, Winchester, Mass. 01890 on the following matter. Petition Z-25-40B-1. Application of Melanson Development Group Incorporated, care of attorney Mark Vaughn, for a 40B comprehensive permit as it applies to the premises known as 278 and 292 Washington Street, 12 and 16 through 20 Swanton Street, Winchester, Mass. 01890. The property is located in the GBD zoning district. The applicant is proposing a mixed-use building with 60 rental units and commercial space. The agenda, application, and plans are available to the public and can be viewed by visiting the Zoning Board of Appeals webpage, www.winchester.us, or contacting Carla McGrath at cmcgrath@winchester.us.
Okay, the board tonight consists of 3 regular members and, well, it's up to 3 alternate members. We're going to have 2 alternate members tonight. All members may participate in the hearing deliberations, but ultimately only 3 members will vote. 2 yes votes are required to approve the 40B petition. I am Dorothy Simboli. And also in attendance on the board, we have David Feigenbaum and Mark Anderson, and alternate members Andrew Clavette and soon to arrive Harut Gazarian. Tom Ashton will be recording this meeting and producing meeting minutes. Carla McGrath is the zoning coordinator. Jay Tallerman, sitting at the table, is town council. I just want to go, we also have, who's going to be speaking momentarily, select board member Mike Betancourt. I would like to go over some administrative items for the petitioner, town officials, and the public. We already said this, but all correspondence should be emailed to the zoning board through Carla McGrath, cmcgrath@winchester.us. If you don't have the opportunity to speak tonight, or if you feel like you want to put something in writing, you can, please direct that to Carla McGrath. Hearing continuances and extension of the decision deadline should be requested in writing through Carla McGrath as well. Any additional information by the petitioner should include 8 hard copies and an electronic copy to be submitted to Carla McGrath at least 3 days before the meeting date. Any revisions or additional information that would need to be reviewed by engineering should be submitted 5 days before the meeting date. I'm assuming we're talking business days?
Yes.
Business days. All revisions and additional information provided will be available to the public on the ZBA website and during regular business hours in the building department of Town Hall. The applicant is Brian Melanson, of Melanson Development Group. Am I pronouncing that correctly? He is being represented by attorney Mark Vaughn. The proposed project is located at the corner of Washington Street and Swanton Street, specifically 278 and 297 Washington Street, 12 and 16 through 20 Swanton Street. The applicant seeks a comprehensive permit under Chapter 40B for the mixed-use development of 60 rental units with ground floor commercial space. The purpose of Chapter 40B is to facilitate development of housing, including affordable housing. The proposed project will meet the 25% requirement of Chapter 40B, with 14 of the 60 rental units being affordable units. The applicant is seeking waivers of local zoning regulations that will be further explained through the process. Before I invite the petitioner's team up, I would like to invite Select Board member Mike Betancourt to speak about the project and give a little bit of background.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Betancourt on behalf of the Select Board. Firstly, just wanted to extend my appreciation to all of you for your service to the community. This isn't an easy job, and it's certainly appreciated. I just wanted to provide a little bit of background of how we got here, and I will be very brief. So in 2018, way back several years ago, the town really committed to solving our affordable housing problem here in Winchester. We were identified as one of the lowest in Massachusetts as far as our percentage of subsidized housing inventory. When we put together the housing production plan, we committed to actually producing affordable housing for the community. This is one of the projects we identified from hearing from the community about this site in particular and stakeholders, and really it was a collaborative effort through the Select Board, through management, working with the Planning Board, the Housing Partnership Board, and ultimately working with Melanson Development. Projects like these don't get to this point unless there is a partnership, and we really found a great partnership with Brian Melanson and his team from the first day that we engaged them in the project until today, and we look forward to it continuing. So we have a great amount of faith in this project. It went to town meeting multiple times for approvals as well. Town meeting overwhelmingly supported this direction for us, and we did our best to do as much outreach to the neighborhood and community as possible. There were representatives from the neighborhood that were part of this process as well, part of the selection process, a part of the RFP process, and so it was as good as it could have been. Understanding that we started this project right at the beginning of the pandemic. So we immediately had to figure out how to do these meetings on Zoom, and I think actually it helped us with our outreach and our connection. So it was almost easier to do that. Susan Verdicchio, a member of our board at the time, was spearheaded this project with me, and I think it was actually Susan was the first person that I saw physically since in the middle of the pandemic outside of my household. So that's how important this project was for us, and also for the community. And we're really glad to see that it's moving forward. And again, just want to extend my appreciation to all of the stakeholder groups, particularly the Housing Partnership Board that helped us, and all sorts of members of the community. We continue to hear what's going on with this project. You know, people want to know. You see it on social media, on Facebook. Every several months it comes up. We've been in the background a little bit doing some due diligence. There have been no shortage of obstacles for us to overcome, some environmental, some legal issues, and some financing issues that the Affordable Housing Trust has helped out with, the Housing Partnership Board and the Select Board. So again, thank you. It's really an auspicious evening for the town to be moving forward with really what has and will continue to be a friendly 40B. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your efforts as well, Mike, and the Select Board. So at this point, I would like to invite the petitioner and his counsel to come present the project.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, can we pull that out a little bit so the, what do you, I'm sorry, what do you want?
No, turn
No.
it so that, yeah.
I think you can pull it
out.
forward too. There you go. Oh, then he won't be able, he can sit back here. Here. Howard, do you want to sit in here? Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Pleased to be before you tonight. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with the law firm of Reamer and Bronstein, representing the petitioner applicant Brian Melanson and Melanson Development Group in connection with the application. So I've had the pleasure and the privilege of working with Brian Melanson for many, many years in a variety of different projects, and I know he's very excited about the opportunity to redevelop this piece of property, which I know, as Selectman Betancourt alluded to, it's been kind of a long time coming, and I'm glad that we're actually here this evening to be able to kind of kick off this process. So I know it's a property that you're obviously intimately familiar with, probably drive by it once a week at least, if not more, right? So it's a very visible location at the corner of Washington and Swanton Street. So we had a brief presentation that we were going to walk through. I'm going to give some opening remarks and just a little bit of kind of history of how we got here, and then going to have our architect come up and walk through the plans, and then our civil design team at R.J. O'Connell just talking about the site civil. We have a brief traffic presentation, and then a landscape design to close it out. So we'll try to be as brief and concise, but also as comprehensive as we can, if that all makes sense. So just again, by way of history, and I think Select Board Member Betancourt touched upon this, but just kind of how we got here. But the property was taken by the town of Winchester back in 2021. It was an eminent domain taking. It was taken for the purposes of developing affordable housing at that time. As I understand it, there was a stipulation that all of the residential units that were developed would need to go towards the town's subsidized housing inventory. So that required, in effect, that it be a rental development in order for all of the units to count, which I can speak to in a moment. But the town then issued a request for proposals, an RFP, where they stipulated what they would like to see in terms of the property and its development, obviously indicating that all of the units would need to count towards the town's subsidized housing inventory. And also there was a requirement that we incorporate a commercial component as well. I think that there was a desire to see some form of commercial retail activation along the Washington Street portion of the property, really to reflect, I think, some of the historic nature of the site, having a commercial presence there. So Melanson Development Group submitted a response to the RFP, and we then entered into discussions and ultimately concluded with town meeting in November of 2022, authorizing the Select Board to sell the premises and enter into a land disposition agreement, LDA, with Brian. So as part of that LDA agreement, which we have obviously submitted, it's part of the record of the submission, we would be purchasing the property subject to obtaining all permits and approvals, most notably the comprehensive permit approval that we would need in order to build the project. So we did also, back in May of 2023, obtain from Mass Housing Partnership a project eligibility letter, which is really a required first step in the process. That's a process where you basically submit a form of an application whereby the subsidizing agency, in this instance Mass Housing Partnership, makes a determination that the site is suitable for residential development, that the criteria that they have in place all make sense for this to be a viable location for the project, and they review the project as well in terms of the design and certain elements of it. So we did get a favorable determination back in May of 23. So over the period of 23, 24, Brian and his team continued with due diligence review of the property, continued discussions with the Select Board and others at the town, ultimately culminating in us filing the comprehensive permit application last month, and here we are with you this evening. Just, again, thought that might be helpful in terms of a little bit of the background. So the project, again, the existing zoning district that we're in is the GBD1 zone, and as you all know, there's been historic utilization of the property as for commercial retail uses. There's been automotive use on there. I think there was a gas station at one point with a repair shop, dry cleaner use. It's been vacant for 10-plus years. I'm not sure exactly how long that period of time has been, just so you're clear, that's historic with a lowercase h. I'm reading that now. I didn't want anyone to think that there's historic buildings on the property. At least I'm not aware of there being any. So yeah. But the intent, and probably no surprise, is to demolish the existing buildings, construct a new 60-unit multifamily mixed-use building that would have approximately 5,600 square feet of commercial space along the Washington Street frontage. 16 units of 16 of the units would be designated as affordable, and for you mathematicians on the board, you may realize that it's actually a little bit more than 25%. So as part of the discussions and negotiations with the town, we actually are having 14 units that are at moderate income, and then 2 additional units that are at a lower level of income, which I'll speak to in a moment. But so a little bit more than 25% of them are affordable. So the building amenities, we have structured parking that's below the building. There's a courtyard, which we'll speak to and show renderings of, ample bike parking, enhanced sidewalk and pedestrian improvements and landscaping improvements as well. Significant stormwater enhancements to the site. I'm not sure there is any stormwater treatment at all that exists there today. There's basically no controls. Everything tends to just sheet flow off of the site. So there's no pre-treatment whatsoever, and we're certainly going to be making a significant improvement there. As I mentioned, the Washington Street pedestrian side will remain commercial. We're contemplating some type of a retail, ideally like a cafe, some type of convenience establishment. There hasn't been any tenant that's been lined up yet, but I know Brian and his team are committed to, trying to work to find the right mix of a tenant there that makes sense to try to activate that area. I think notably the property transfer, once it happens, will return this property to the tax rolls of the town. As you may know, the town does not tax itself, so the property right now does not generate any tax revenue, so I think that's certainly a positive. And lastly, this site has been identified on the town's housing production plan, which was recently approved by EOHLC. So I know that this is obviously a site that the town has earmarked for the purpose for which we're before you tonight. So just a little bit about the affordability again. So because it is a 40B and 25% of the units are designated as affordable and it's rental, actually all of the units will end up counting towards the town's SHI, which is a huge positive for the town. I know the town has been making good progress towards that effort, and this is certainly going to be helpful. I think the implication of it in terms of the town having a housing production plan is, at least I understand it, and Jay Talaman or others can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that by creating these 60 units, it actually allows the town to be in a position where it's making progress towards a goal to be able to be in what they call a safe harbor position. By having 60 units created, which is in excess of the 40 that you would otherwise need to create in any one calendar year. So again, the 16 units are going to be dispersed between there's going to be an array of 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, and 3-bedroom units. So we are going to have 10 affordables, 1-bedroom units, 4 affordable 2-bedrooms, and 2 affordable 3-bedrooms. And as I mentioned, also the rental rates are different depending upon whether it's a 60% of area median income formula or 80% of the area median income formula. I think when you put that all in the blender, it comes out to those affordable rental rates that we're showing on the screen there, depending upon the bedroom count of the unit. So. Just again, this is the site here, corner of Washington and Swanton. We're going to be showing this same rendering later on in the civil presentation, but I just thought it might be helpful for everyone to focus again on the area that we're talking about. The large building at the top left of that is the high school. So just as a point of reference in terms of where we are, I think the site is very ideally situated in terms of it being walkable to not only the high school, but town center, commuter rail. You have the Morocco School that's off to the right as well, which is in walking distance. Here are...
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
I just want to make sure, can everyone hear him?
No, there are people in the hallway who cannot hear and cannot participate.
Can the mic go up? Is the mic on, or can it go up? Maybe hit the button, push the button, and bring it closer to you.
I think it's on, but...
Oh, there it is.
Oh, is
Now
that
it
better? Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries. Everyone all set? Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, so again, just the site, this is the locus plan that just walked through to give you a sense of the site. You'll see there's 3 buildings on there today that all would be demolished as part of this. And these are just some street images, not to rub salt in the wounds, I guess, in terms of what the property looks like today, but this is what's there. Looking at it from Washington Street, as you make your way from the left to right, you'll see the building, obviously vacant storefronts, and then this is, as you work your way down Swanton Street, you'll see the buildings that are there. I think there was a former Mexican restaurant, I want to say, or barbecue place in one of those, and this is just another visual of that side of Swanton Street if you're looking towards Washington at that angle. Notably, you'll see that there's actually, it's a wide open curb cut there today. There's no channelized curb cuts for traffic safety purposes or anything. So, but Rather than Mike keep babbling on here, I'm actually going to have Larry Reeves, our architect, come up and just walk through the plan, his plan. But just before doing that, the plan that he's going to show you is the same plan virtually that was done as part of the RFP process. So I think that the footprint and massing of the building are really all dictated by the need to get the number of units that we're required to get by way of the LDA agreement that we have with the town, along with the parking and the commercial space. And I think Larry has done an exceptional job, in my opinion, of designing a building that we feel very much complements the transitional nature of this neighborhood, and will certainly be a great improvement over what's out there today. But again, I think that's somewhat of an understatement. But so with that, Larry, do you want to?
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Larry Reeves, principal at Reeves Design Associates. Thank you, everybody, the board, and all the neighbors that are here. This is good to see. We've actually had some good meetings over the last several years that have had a lot of folks in attendance. So we've been it's been an exciting process. It's also been a long process. But part of what we have done, and I'll kind of move to the first steps, is that to start the whole process, we did spend quite a bit of time taking a look at the whole neighborhood and the town in general, but understanding the nature of the housing that's in the vicinity, as well as the commercial that's just adjacent and up the road. We're close to downtown, so we really are in a highly transitional position from a use standpoint, as well as from an architectural standpoint, from a design standpoint. So we've really tried to model the building with sort of the massing and rhythms that you would expect from more of a semi-urban housing model, more of a row house feel to it, as opposed to a large block from the street side. And really have worked hard to retain a very sort of a traditional palette throughout the building to reflect especially the residences in the area. We also then, this being the view from Washington Street, just real briefly, sort of to the left end, we do have an arched entrance that brings you into some parking that's hidden behind the street front. I'll show that in a plan. But then as you go to the right, we do have the storefronts with the covered entries and walkway there. Then as you come around to the intersection and head down Swanton, the grade drops fast. So we have terraced that, have broken up that whole facade so that it really is still more of a three-story building. And the terraces help to transition down to the lowest level on kind of the northeast corner there. These first two sketches were initial renderings that we did for the project. From the meetings that we did have and the feedback that we had from the design review board and from the community, we then made some significant, subtle but significant changes to the building. At this point, one of those is color. And we still can play with color, but this was a distinct change that was affected by the meetings. Another one, which is a little harder to play here, I guess I do have sort of a pointer. This is the residential entrance on the Swanton side of the building, and a garage entrance to the lower level of the building that supports 74 parking spaces down below. But we actually had moved the residential entrance from from adjacent to the garage up the hill to bring it more and to relate to the intersection. That actually then precipitated a number of design changes along the building. So this has changed from day one to now. Two additional renderings, the opposite sides. The top view is from the northwest corner at the full downhill. It expresses really as a four-story element on the full downhill side of the building. This faces the commercial lot adjacent. On the lower level, lower view rather, to the right is the Washington Street portion of the building. To the left is the northerly taller section, and in the middle, the grayed out area is actually set back. Is that at that second level, we have a landscape courtyard. That also breaks up that whole facade. So we have more of a building front here. It steps back 100 feet or something back into the courtyard and then comes back out. This grayed area is driveway and parking underneath that landscaped area. In plan, off of to the right is Washington Street. Up above is Swanton. We have an entrance off of Washington that brings you in under the building and into a covered parking area that supports, I think it's 41 spaces, something like that. And then around the perimeter on the street front on Washington, we have the commercial spaces. It likely can be broken into 2 or 3 different spaces depending on the eventual tenant. Each of those have access off the Washington Street side, as well as having then a well-developed landscape all the way along the street fronts. And the landscape architect, Michael Radner, will review more of that towards the end of the presentation here. We've introduced a covered round entrance at the corner that also serves as a kind of a beacon and tower element right at the intersection to sort of claim that intersection nicely. We also, at the same level, have the main entrance, pedestrian entrance, into the residential lobby that brings you into. We have a ring of, or a perimeter of units on the Swanton Street and on the northerly face here. Then just briefly down below, as I mentioned, we have off of Swanton the garage entrance. Brings you into a full garage area down underneath the building. That's all obscured from the street. Our upper floors, the second floor, we have a U-shaped building, a large landscaped courtyard on that second level that covers those parking spaces. General unit layouts, pretty much the same on the second and third floors. This third floor, they break back a little bit more with roof lines and things. Oops. And up on, just as a reference, we do have sloped roofs. We actually are using the sloped roof in lieu of putting up a bunch of fences as a screen for our mechanical, much more in keeping with the traditional design style. But we drop off and have a full 5 to 7 foot screen, tall screen, so that we can put all of our equipment and whatever's necessary up in this flat area. Just a quick cross section, just a sense of this colored area is actually faces the courtyard at the second floor. As you can tell, you kind of see the difference. We do have parking and at each of these levels. Then the residential is really around the perimeter up in here. So I think that's just the nuts and bolts of it. I think it's probably just as easy at this point to pass it off for site information, and we can get back to the landscape at the end to show the extent of that, which is actually really critical. That it integrates very nicely with the design and with the streetscape. So, go from there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Can everybody hear me? Good, okay. Rich O'Connell from the slide, R.J. O'Connell Associates. We're up the road in Stoneham, Montville Ave. Do a lot of site civil work in this area and around the state. Been working on this site for several years. Mark had this slide. He already went over sort of the aerial, so I'm going to sort of skip that, although he did miss two important things. Wincom is in the building next door. They're recording it tonight here, so that's their building. And, of course, the Swanton Street Diner down at Holland, have to give them a shout-out. Coming in a little closer, just bringing it in a little bit, that's the existing site. On the aerial, the yellowish area is rooftops, gray is pavement. And just quickly, we outlined the percentages there of what's going on. There's about 23% roof area, about 71% of just paved parking area, and a little under 6% of pervious area. I'm not going to call it landscaping, it's pervious. So we got about 94% impervious on this site. This slide is existing utility infrastructure, and it's kind of grayed out, but that's the way they do it with surveys, and I've kind of beefed up some of the information to take a look at. Early on, we met with Brian's group, Melanson Development, met with Beth, Brian Manter, and the folks who were around at that time, and we went through what was going on in the area, what was going on in the neighborhood, again, with respect to utilities, and they pointed us into some directions, you know, where to go, where the sewer water was located. But one of the big things was there's drainage problem, and they said, can you kind of stay away? There's a small 18-inch drain on Swanton Street. See what you can do with that. There's really two watersheds, a Washington Street and a Swanton Street watershed. They both come together down on Nelson, a little circuitous in the path they take, but they do come together. So they end up in one watershed. So the thought here was to push a little more to the bigger piping over in Washington Street and try to alleviate some of the concerns on Swanton Street. So water, sewer, gas, all available in Swanton and Washington. So we're pretty good there. This is sort of a zoning and parking bulk and dimensional table. I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. Mark went over the zoning. It's a 40B, so you know some of the zoning is a little different. 73 parking spaces in the lower level, 41 parking spaces on the Washington Street level. It gives us a total of about 114. We would need 120 if this was all residential and 60 units, so we're kind of close to that. If you take a look at it, it's shared parking. We kind of meet the requirements at night, but again, there's Mark alluded to those variances that are going to go on there, or waivers, I guess, not variances. So I think we have slide 5 now, so let's narrow in a little bit on the drainage, because that's an issue. As Mark said, it's totally uncontrollable out there now. There are no stop gaps or any system whatsoever. It's all sheet flow. Some of it goes to the abutting properties, some of it sheet flows into Swanton, and some of it sheet flows back out onto Washington Street. So we have 3 POAs, which you'll see here. Those are pointer analysis. That allows us to model what's going on, and then we look at those areas and do pre and post. So all of this, again, is sheet flow untreated, but it runs into the town system regardless, because it gets picked up in catch basin down the street here or catch basin down the street there. So it all goes to what's called the MS4 system. The MS4 system is municipal separated storm sewer, so it's M plus 4 S's. And what that means is there's no sanitary in there. This is all drainage. And cities and towns are very concerned with their MS4 systems these days. They're federally mandated for a bunch of things, so that's why the MS4 is very important. There's no cleaning being done here, absolutely none. This shows what we plan on doing. So you see the beige area is the building area. Larry pointed that out, the extents of it. The green is the landscaping. So it takes up a pretty good percentage of the site. But what's important, I think, is that we, in those same three areas, POA, B, and C, A went to the abutting properties. We're eliminating that. There's no more sheet flow over there. C goes to Swanton Street, and B goes to Washington Street. So we have eliminated A. We've cut C back, which is the Swanton Street. We're cutting that back by 60%, and then the rest of it is going to go out to Washington Street, which again has the larger pipe, and they both come together again down the way at Nelson. We also added water quality units, CDS units, which take out TSS removal or total suspended solids, and then the jellyfish units, which take more of the phosphorus. And so using those, we have a TSS removal rate of 97% and a total phosphorus removal rate of 70%. These are proprietary units. By using them, we get better than what's required for redevelopment, which is 80% and 50%, so we're well over those margins. So the plan is we're going to collect the runoff, we're going to clean the runoff, and overall we're reducing the runoff by anywhere from 8 to 15% depending on the storm year, and those are all in those charts there, and it's a lot of detail that the peer reviewer is going to dig into and get back to us on. So that's the micro. If we step back a little bit, there's two watersheds. This is the Swanton Street watershed. It kind of shows where the two come together. The darker line is the Swanton piping, and the dashed line is the Washington Street piping. But this is about 15 acres of watershed. The site is a little under 4% of it. In contribution, it's going to be down around 1% of it because of what we're doing with the reduction in flow. Now, the larger watershed is obviously the Washington Street watershed. It goes all the way up the hill up to Lake Kenworth, 55 acres. And by the time this gets down to the site, it's almost a half an hour or so to get there. So our little site is kind of like comes in early and goes away. But this is the site. There's also a wooded area of the site, the woodland site, which is not developed. We put it in there, but we're not running it in the calculations because it takes so long. It's almost an hour to get down there, so it just dilutes it even more. Now, what's that animal? That's kind of what a picture of what the other two slides show. This is a hydrograph. It shows the flow. It's got time along the bottom in hours. It's got cubic feet per second going up the left-hand side. The purple, now that's the Washington Street watershed. It really gets up there. It peaks at around 12.5 hours. The green is the wooded area. And that little blue line at the bottom, that's our site. So the blue peaks about 12 hours in, and by the time Washington Street gets down and peaks, we're all done and gone. So it's just kind of a graphic of what's going on there and how our site contributes to the overall. A little summary. Major utilities, sewer, water, gas, electric, all available in Washington Street and Swanton Street. We're going to collect, control all of the untreated existing sheet flow. We're going to increase groundwater recharge. We're going to increase the green area by 10%, reducing the paved area by 58%, and we're reducing the runoff volume, Swanton Street, 60%, overall flow, 10 to 15%, and then again, the cleaning of the runoff, 97% in the TSS removal, and 70% of total phosphorus. So that's about what's going on for civil. What do we get next? We do traffic? Traffic, I'm going to turn it over to Scott for the traffic.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Scott Thornton with Vanessa Associates. We prepared the traffic assessment for the project. I'm sure that there's going to be a later meeting where traffic is going to be discussed in greater detail. I'm just going to give you an overview of the traffic study, and then we can discuss further, obviously with the peer review consultant and any other concerns that come up. So we prepared a traffic study consistent with state and local guidelines. We had reached out to the chairman of the planning board and the assistant town engineer, Brian Manter, at the time, to confirm the study area for the project. And basically what we were told was to look at the intersections of Washington Street at Swanton Street and Park Avenue, Washington Street with Park Road, and Swanton Street with Chester Street. And then obviously the two site driveways, one out onto Washington Street and the other out to Swanton Street. We did counts at the three existing locations for the weekday morning, weekday evening, and Saturday midday time periods. Looked at pedestrian, bicycle counts, as well as counts of vehicles and trucks that were going through those intersections. We developed an existing conditions profile of the study area. We also looked at safety data such as crash data at these intersections to identify if there were any safety issues. We also looked at transit, public transportation conditions in the area. And from there, we developed the existing conditions, and then we took a look at a future condition where we added 7 years of growth to the traffic volumes. That's consistent with Mass DOT guidelines for traffic studies. Did a dive on adjacent or nearby development that wasn't that was proposed but not yet, or approved but not yet constructed. Turns out there wasn't any at the time. And then we developed those no-build conditions and then added the project traffic into that to get the future build conditions. This slide shows the trip generation for the project, again, with the 60 residential units. And at the time, we had analyzed 6,000 square feet of commercial space. That's since been downsized a little bit, so some of those trips would fall off. But looking at the morning and the evening time periods, we're looking at about 38 total trips during the weekday morning peak hour, 71 trips during the weekday evening peak hour, and then 73 trips during the Saturday midday time period. And we found when we added that traffic into the study area intersections and did the analysis of operations there with the delays that comes out of that analysis, weren't really any changes in level of service grades, A's to A's or B's to B's. The intersection of Washington Street with Swanton Street and Park Avenue, we noticed that there was some delays there, particularly on the Swanton Street approach. That was the case with or without the development. We had identified that there could be some changes there, some modifications to the signal timing that could be done that would improve the operations and reduce some of the delays there. But that's something that we suggested should be done regardless of the project status.
Is that done during
This,
school time?
You'll have a chance at the end to ask your questions.
so this next slide just shows some information on the public transportation accessible for the project. The red path shows the walk to the Winchester Center Station. The blue path shows the walk down to the closest bus 134 stop. So they're between 17 minutes away. So not that far. We think a lot of people, a lot of residents would be drawn to the site because of its proximity to transit and its access to the town center, as Mark had indicated previously. We like that these services are running 7 days a week, so it is the kind of site that a car's not really necessary, but it does. Those types of transit services are what people are looking for. In terms of some other things that were mentioned, particularly with the improvements to Swanton Street, and Mark had indicated that long curb cut. It's about 75 feet, completely unprotected, that pedestrians currently walk on. That's going to get closed up to about 24 feet. And then there's going to be curb and sidewalk and trees along that walking path. It's going to be a much more pleasant condition than what's there now. So I think that's it for traffic. I'll turn it over to Michael Radner to discuss landscape. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Radner. I'm a landscape architect with Radner Design Associates at 3 Allied Drive in Dedham. And I'll walk through a few of these slides. Thanks for everybody's patience on this. I know it's a long presentation, and we're almost at the end of the 42 slides that we've been showing. So this is the overall landscape plan. Is this No, I like to point at my plans. So just a little bit about the existing conditions first. As has been mentioned, Washington Street along the right side of the plan, Swanton Street along the top. Washington Street is a concrete jungle right now. There's no trees along there. There are some overhead utility poles that run top to bottom of the page. Existing on Swanton Street, there are some pear trees that are growing, actually kind of set back a little bit from the sidewalk. Pears are, aside from the fact that the pears are sitting almost in our building footprint now, they're not valuable trees. They're kind of considered weed trees at this point. We don't plant them anymore. And we'll be replacing those with new street trees. A little bit on this, the south and the west side of the site. There is no vegetation currently on the west side of the site. There is some sort of weed growth along this slope here that goes down to the next property, but it's off of our site. There are some existing trees along the southwest corner here. Some of them are on our property. Most of them are not, or are on the property line, and our intent is to preserve those trees along here. I think that there's some, basically along this whole south side, are some maples and spruce trees along there. So we are going to preserve those. There are a couple of spruce trees along the southeast side here, and because of the way that the building is configured and is kind of set back on this site, we don't have a lot of disturbance in this area, so we can preserve those as well. There are some trees along this edge right here, which are, and I understand one came down recently in a, and I see a piece of fence that came down here. So we've lost one, but there are also a couple of trees that are on our property. Now, I'm not an arborist, so I'm not going to give you a technical presentation on that, but I do see some damage to those trees. I'm not the one to say whether they're a hazard or not, but because of the way that the footprint of the building turns out here and the amount of disturbance, there are some trees that will have to come out on our property as well. So to the proposed landscape plan, I do want to sort of reemphasize this area to the right here along Washington Street, where we have, I think that the proposed building is about the same setback as the existing building, is about 25 feet. Yeah. So, you know, what is nice about this is that our right-of-way line, which is a little bit hard to see here, and our building is set back even further from the right-of-way line. So we're not going right up to that line. We do have a bit of a setback there. And what we've done, what we really would like to do is activate this space here, which is along this commercial frontage, and to create a series of spaces. Now there is, you know, you think of this site and you go by and it looks kind of flat. It's not flat. It slopes from south to north, and what happens is as you slope up the page, if you will, the reveal of the first floor of the building appears a little bit higher, so you need some steps to get up there. So that's why these little curvy sort of landscape planting areas are in there. It provides a change in grade so that you can go at the street level on the right side and then go up a little bit. It's only about 18 inches. It's like seat wall height to get up to this area here. And the idea is that we're going to create, you know, some kind of, activate this space with some kind of space where you could have seating like benches or movable furniture there, you know, if any kind of eatery or so forth comes into these spaces that has a retail component. So that's the flavor of what we're trying to do there. And this is, you know, I would call this like quasi-public space. It's, you know, half of it is on private property, but half of it is in the right-of-way, but it's open to the public. It's not closed off by any means. I do want to highlight these little dash areas here as places where we're having bike parking. So we have quite, I don't know the exact number of bike parking spaces on this, but we have quite a few bike parking spaces in two locations that are exterior. And then there's also a bike service station that's going to be in here, which will be open for the public's use. You know, air pump, you know, you can fix your tire or whatever. There, Larry is a big bicycle person, so so we've included that, a little seating area there as well, and there's that bike station right there. And then I wanted to highlight in the red, we're going to do a 6-foot opaque fence around the south and west side of the site to provide some visual protection for both sides of the property, and that's what that would look like. Again, on the Swanton Street side, we do have street trees coming in here. We have a nice, you know, fairly wide, generous sidewalk so that we can afford to put trees in planters along the street edge, and then have the walkable space that happens behind that. So you have that nice buffer, that sense of enclosure as you walk down the street. And then these green areas in here are these, as Larry mentioned, these terraces that sort of cascade down from right to left as you go down Swanton Street, and provide that kind of lowers the scale of the building as you come down there and you see the green space. And these are actually exterior patio / deck spaces for the units that overlook those green spaces, so a nice improvement there. And these are just some images of the types of trees that we're thinking of here. This is Armstrong Maples, which has a nice sort of very vertical form, great fall color in that one. And then along Washington Street, as I mentioned, there are some overhead utility lines there, so our trees are set back actually on the private property so that the building will maintain those. And we think those are smaller trees, smaller flowering trees like a dogwood. On the lower left is it's part of our drainage system, which is a surface infiltration area, bioretention. I want to use the correct term, Rich? Bioretention area, which is, has a special soil where it allows some of the rainwater collects and infiltrates into the ground, and this is the type of landscape treatment that we would see there. Very quickly on the lighting, we do propose to have this type of decorative pedestrian scale light fixture. This particular fixture is from a very solid manufacturer. It's a very high quality fixture. I think those are 10-foot high light poles, and it's kind of a, call that transitional, a little bit modern, a little bit traditional in its look. This is all LED lighting. We can control where the light goes very effectively with these. The light source is up in the top and everything shines down, so this is dark sky compliant. No light goes out to the side. But we are lighting with these poles, and a little bit hard to see where I'm pointing here, but there's poles along this edge here which are going to light both the sort of interior sidewalk and the exterior sidewalk. And then on the Swanton Street side, our idea is to put lower, like 24-inch tall bollards planted in these raised planters so that they're gonna light this sidewalk and some of this landscaping as well. And there is a photometric plan. I don't need to get into the technical aspects of that, but we have good coverage on the lighting throughout the site. This is the courtyard level at the second floor, and I'm just showing the landscaped area. The building wraps around this area here, and then the units that are facing onto this courtyard at this level have private patios in these locations. So you can see those beige areas here. That's a private patio, and then the rest of it is a shared space for the residents. So a lawn panel, some seat walls, a barbecue area, some shade structures. You can see the movable sort of furniture that's in this area. So these are popular amenity spaces that we've done on a number of projects, and this gives you the flavor of what that might look like as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that concludes our presentation initially, so happy to turn it back to you and any questions or comments that you might have. So.
Yeah, I'm sure the members of the board have questions, comments. Thank you very much. It was a really thorough presentation. Obviously, a lot of work has gone into this, a lot of thought, a lot of detail. We really appreciate it. Anyone want to start with questions?
I'm going to have questions, but I'm not going to have them until next time.
You don't have questions today?
Today, but next time I will.
Okay. I have questions, unless you want me to go?
Go ahead, yeah, go in order.
Okay. Can you give us a little bit more detail on, you talked about pedestrian enhancements. Can you give us more detail on that?
Well, I think what I meant by that was the kind of pedestrian improvements or making the area more pedestrian friendly along both Washington and Swanton Street, whereas today it's not so friendly. So I think, Michael, do you want to maybe speak to that?
I'm just looking for specific just specific details when you describe pedestrian enhancements. Just like give me a line by line of what improvements you plan on making and what things you've considered.
You want
to? Sure. So just to be clear, our scope is aesthetic improvements. So I don't know if you're asking about that or more like traffic safety, pedestrian crossings, and so which would be our traffic consultant.
Why don't you give them to me both?
So I think we are replacing all of the sidewalks that are there now. There's nothing really that's salvageable, so we're going to have new cast-in-place concrete sidewalks on both the north and east side. We're going to have, I would consider these types of, this bench seating. These are seat walls out here that you can sort of hang out on the Washington Street side. You can see the benches in here that are in brown. And then just adding these landscape planters in here provides some shade. You know, the cooling effect of street trees and landscaping is evident. And I also think that the enhanced lighting there is going to be a positive. Right now, I think there's a couple of Cobra head light fixtures that are hung off of utility poles that are lighting the street, and there's nothing really lighting the sidewalk. So I should also mention that there's a little bit hard to see here, but if you can see my cursor, the building actually comes out a little bit further than the wall. This is the wall of the building here. And then there's an arcade. This is an arcade space. So this is completely covered under here. So you have, how deep is that? 8 feet? Yeah, about 8 feet of cover, so that if there's, you know, if you're coming in, parking on Washington Street and you're coming in, you know, in the rain, at least there's some cover there before you can go in the front door. So it's kind of nice, you know, combination of sunny and shady spaces.
So if you're a pedestrian hustling to get away from Town Hall, and you're heading down Washington Street, what's your, and you come to this
And the
property,
skies,
what's your path?
the skies open up and you would.
Well, no, it's sunny. We'll talk about
Oh, okay.
skies open up next.
So if you're coming from downtown and along this sidewalk, there's a couple of steps going up here.
I'm sorry, I just can't see your cursor.
Let me see if I can,
Can you color it? That would be,
how's that? Is that helpful?
yeah.
So you're walking up Washington Street here, and then you would go up a couple of steps to get into this space right here, and your retail entries are along this edge of the
So that would
building.
be in a rain situation, because you'd want to get up close to.
Or you can
the
get out of
overhead.
the sun, sure.
Or out of the sun.
Right.
And now
So you-
suppose you don't want to do that, and
You
you're
would continue up Washington
on
Street.
the outer side.
Right. So there's two paths, really. There's the little, you know, we'll call it the upper terrace and a lower terrace, and then there's multiple ways to get in and out of this space
Yep.
at these locations.
And the benches are all meant to face the facade of the building.
Well, I think that they would be more like this, where they're backless.
Ah.
So, for instance, on this one, you could sit on either side. Sit on one side, swing your legs over, and be on the other side.
Mike, I think in addition, both Mark and Scott alluded to the Swanton Street sidewalk, which I think you were generous with 70 feet. The curb is so low, it's like one continuous driveway from the corner to the end, and that's getting knocked down to like a 24-foot entrance into the garage. So you're going to have a complete new sidewalk along Swanton Street.
A new 6-inch reveal,
Yeah.
where there's 0 to 1 or 2 inches right there now.
Right now, that's wide open. If you go
Yeah.
way back to the early slides, I think we have some
Yeah,
shots.
we have some pictures.
You do have a
of that.
picture,
Yeah.
yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we go to the transfer dump, and we see that all the time. So we're familiar with it.
So Swanton Street is 70 feet of new sidewalk, and
Well, it's more than, it's actually more than that. I think 70 feet was a number that Scott threw out as being driveway openings. But if you look at it, you can drive over the curb anywhere there, so it's only, it's like the
Right.
whole Swanton Street. It's no man's land. That's all gonna be curbed.
What's
And
the length of
sidewalk.
that building is 150 feet, yeah.
And there'll be a 24-foot opening to get to the garage. So that's
and is there sidewalk on the end of the property there along Swanton?
all the way along. all the way down.
So it dead ends right at your at this property?
Well, then you go to the next property next door.
Right, that's what I'm asking. So is there sidewalk there now, existing?
That's what
I
you're
think
looking
that's a
at right
picture of
there.
it.
No.
Let's go back to the plan view.
There might be an area we could.
Yeah, that's good.
So they have a little bit of a sidewalk on the left there, right? Yeah,
So our work ends right here.
yeah.
And the sidewalk is the walk that's not gray.
The sidewalk is gray.
Is the
It
gray.
is gray.
Yeah,
Right. The
this is
driveway-
all new sidewalk.
The driveway into the garage is whited out, and then there's a loading area that's whited out, yeah, right there.
Right.
Other than that, it's all brand-new sidewalk from Washington Street down to there.
And so the pedestrian would typically, almost certainly, walk between the trees and the
Yeah.
facade of the
Correct.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah, right along here.
Yeah.
So that's a good 6 or 7 feet of sidewalk plus a 4-foot wide planting strip.
Planted area, yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions about that? So then, from a traffic safety perspective, can you give us details on what you're planning on doing with that?
Yeah, sure. So I think that we talked about the closing up of this curb cut. And let's see if I can get back there. The intersection of Swanton and Washington Street currently has a pedestrian phase that's built into that signal. So that exists there. But just getting back to this slide, and I know we've gone over it, but it is more, the distance across that open stretch of curb cut, which is in front of the cleaners and the restaurant that was there, that's about 75 feet. But then continuing up past where the gas station was, as Richie indicated, it's the reveal, and the reveal is so short there. A car could very easily just drive up on the sidewalk. So, but with a 6-inch reveal there for the new curb and the new sidewalk, you're going to have some protection for pedestrians that doesn't currently exist.
And you had said, sorry, the intersection, which one has the pedestrian crossing? already?
The traffic signal at
Crossing Swanton.
at Swanton Street and
Okay.
Washington Street, right?
And from going across Washington over towards Park. Yeah.
And this is like traditional granite curbing like we have throughout Winchester?
I believe it would be, yeah.
Town standards.
Okay. I had more questions for you.
Sure.
How many parking spaces are immediately in front of the commercial spaces?
On Washington Street? Four.
4? And is, I didn't know if you contemplated putting like a restaurant or something in there. Are you going to have a space for people to pull up, like 15 minutes, take out, something like that? Or is there a place where you could accommodate that?
There may be space on site that we could do that. I think any parking along Washington Street will be governed by the town. So, maybe if we find that it's something that's appropriate, we could check with the town and see if they would accept some kind of condition like that.
Okay. Going to your traffic study, what was the date of your traffic study when you did that?
So we collected counts in May of 2023. So that was done when schools were in session.
Like beginning of May, mid-May?
Mid-May, like I think the 18th and the 20th.
And I think if I can steal maybe, what about a question from somebody in the audience who tried to ask, were they during kind of those peak hours of pickup and drop off and?
Certainly drop off in the morning because we did from 7 to 9.
The evening was probably later. I
In
imagine.
the evening was later, it was 4 to 6, and then Saturday was 11 to 2.
Yep, okay.
And the weekend ones, do you know when you ran those?
That's the 20th, that's May 20th, that's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
So you didn't catch that early morning transfer station traffic?
We did not.
Let's see.
I had a general question.
Oh,
just
go
while
ahead.
We're on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, 114 parking spaces are being added, obviously upping the traffic in the area. I know you mentioned something about adjusting signals or doing something to kind of compensate for that. Like, what's the plan there? Like,
Yeah, so what
you would obviously need town involvement to be able to do it if you're adjusting that, correct?
Yeah, if it's something that that we wind up taking on, that's one thing. It's something that the town could do on their own, and frankly, it's an existing condition where there's a lot of delay on Swanton Street. But if we could. It's something we would recommend that those changes would be made anyway.
That's just timing changes, I think?
It's just
Yeah,
timing changes,
Giving
yeah.
more time for the Swanton Street to...
Basically, yeah. Washington Street doesn't have that much delay associated with it that we noticed in the counts that we did. But Swanton Street had a fair amount of traffic and delays that were associated.
What is the volume of bicycle traffic into that will be served by that building?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I would have thought it was,
Minimus?
That's a good question. We typically, I'd have to go back and check the census data to see how much bicycle use is generated by the residents in the area. I can get back to you on that.
I'd be interested next time.
Sure.
The driveway entrance that goes in off of Washington Street, where does that go? That little arch driveway that goes in off of Washington Street? So it's, you're crossing the sidewalk there?
Yep.
Goes right into the parking, yeah.
Goes right into that parking area.
Into that parking area, okay.
So here,
That's the
this is
41?
Washington.
41 spaces, yeah.
So that's roughly where the curb
the
cut is right now, that just goes down asphalt into the back, is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's also going to be divided between the commercial and the residential.
Oh, so, sorry, just to make sure I understand that. So some of those 41 spaces are not for residents?
That's correct.
Oh, so, okay, so if I pull up, somehow that garage will open, I
Some of
can...
that is set aside for the commercial,
Okay.
which is why at night.
Okay, so that helps with that, your question about having only 4 in front. There's actually some spaces
Yeah, the four in
there.
front would just, they're there because it's the street, but
Yeah.
the actual spaces for the commercial is.
And then you can enter the commercial spaces without walking all the way around the Washington Street entrance? Or not?
need to go in from Washington Street.
So you need
Come
to,
around.
yeah, I don't think
You
there'll
have
be, I don't think there'll be any rear entrances, but.
Right. We have a covered walkway from the rear parking.
So you'd walk out of the garage up Swanton and...
That's
the same.
That pedestrian
The back-
passageway.
The back side, the other side.
It says pedestrian passageway, right?
Yeah, adjacent to the driveway, there's a
Oh, yeah.
pedestrian passage.
Yeah, right there.
That's a sidewalk, right?
Yes.
And then to the right. Yeah, and then go, yeah, there you go. to
Yes,
the-
that's it.
Is that covered?
Yes.
Yes.
What is happening? We don't know what's happening.
He's describing the access to the commercial parking spaces that are actually in the interior of the building. So in addition to street parking, there's commercial parking areas in the, off of Washington Street, off the entrance. So is it contemplated that those spaces are going to be used by customers, or, okay, so it's not going to be for like the commercial spaces employees parking there, they're going to be...
It would include that to some degree as well.
You know, in order for Ann and other people to hear,
Yeah. Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to have to make some arrangements so that when people
we
want
got an
to
extra seat, too, so we
speak,
can-
they're going to come
Yeah,
up.
you could come up to the other seat.
It's cumbersome, but I think it's
Well, we might
necessary.
pass this along, but the parking area has 41 spaces, but we've designated 16 of those are for commercial use, so that during the day, that there are 16 units or spaces that can be used. It could be employees. We really have to see what the use actually ends up being. But because during the day we have a lot of the residents are going to be out, this will also have an inclusion of some sort of time trade-offs of parking. So we do have to see what the actual commercial tenant use is, but we would manage this 41 spaces. Some of those would be designated residential at all times, but there potentially would be some flexible spaces within the kind of the center area, as well as the 16 that we've called out during the day. At nighttime, we might have some reversal where we can have additional spaces that would have a time limit where, you know, if a resident parks there, they've got to be out by 7 or something. But that type of a flexible use, we do anticipate.
On the parking spaces, so...
Use your mic.
Yeah, sorry. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I think you had said 120 spaces are needed. Is that with both residential and commercial, or is that just
If
the
it's
residential calculation?
only residential,
Okay.
2 per unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you were to apply the town's traditional parking ratio of 2 per unit, then for the 60 units, it would be 120 spaces. But I do know, you know, the board has been comfortable in the past with the 1.5, which is really what we're targeting with. I think there's been other projects that have been approved at that. And I think even a lower ratio for the Winchester Center area, you know, in terms of the parking requirement. But, you know, the majority of the units are going to be one-bedroom units, too, I think is important to note. You know, look, I think it's possible that there could be some residents that don't own a car as well, just that they, you know, want to be able to walk to the town center and the commuter rail. So I think there's that element of it, too.
Are any of the spots contemplated to be electric vehicle?
Good question.
Yes. and we actually, as things are progressing, essentially we'll start with several already established electric spaces within the residence area. And we probably will end up with a couple of them, 1 or 2 or something in the commercial zone. But then over time, we'll be flexible to be able to expand to full electric use over time. So, but that would be phased as the need is identified.
If I can ask another parking-related question, sorry. I think I know the answer to this, but I want to ask, the basement is just for residents, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the commercial spaces that you have on the property, you do have flexibility. So if you were to do a restaurant use in that location, you could put a takeout space or a delivery space or something like that.
Absolutely would, yeah.
So like if somebody ordered Uber Eats or their dry cleaner, whatever, you could create that drop-off space within the building.
That's right.
Yeah, much of that will be worked out once they figure out what the tenants are, so
Right.
then we know what the needs are.
Exactly. Where are the dumpsters located?
They are down at the loading area on Swanton Street.
Closer to the dump.
Transfer station.
That's what we
have,
actually. Internal.
So they're accessible to the tenants on the lower level.
Basement.
Yeah, in the basement level.
Okay.
I just have one more question. Can you tell us how the bioretention area functions, like in terms of
Sure,
watering those trees that you're going to be planting?
The bioretention area is basically, you saw the picture of it, it's pretty nice. It's filled with grasses and different flowering things that take up stuff that gets in there, the bad stuff from the runoff. It is lined. It does not infiltrate. I didn't want to stop Mike because it is what it is. A bioretention area is lined, so it goes through the filter media, and then there's a subdrain in it, and that subdrain then connects to the drainage system. So it's not infiltration. It's like running it through sand, and then at the bottom there's a subdrain, but that leaches out and connects to the drainage system, so it's all collected.
Through a pipe.
Through a pipe, a perforated pipe. Yeah, perforated pipe at the bottom. So it's infiltration, but it's infiltration and confined. It doesn't keep going down into the groundwater. It goes to the drainage system.
So it's going to the drain. It's not something that you then recycle that water on premises for?
No.
Okay.
No. No, it just makes its way down, cleans itself, and then goes out into the storm drainage system.
Okay, so, but you don't have any irrigation system that you're putting in? For, oh, you are?
I would assume we would have
Okay.
irrigation, not for the bioretention area itself.
No.
But for the landscaping, yes.
For the landscaping, for the street trees that you're putting in, all of
Yes.
that, they're all going to have, okay. Anyone else have any questions?
On any topic? I mean, roughly?
Any topic that they presented on?
I guess next time we meet, I would find it useful if you would show cross-sectional views of the facades, because it's a little, I'd like to see how well articulated they are, how three-dimensional they are. And I can't see that very well from the sort of the elevation.
Larry, we do have cross-sections in the construction drawing. These are just the slides for the presentation. There is a full set of documents that was submitted.
Okay.
I mean, what you saw tonight.
I didn't see that, but I guess I didn't look carefully enough.
Well, we'll take a look at it.
Basically, I'm interested in making sure that the facade is articulated considerably so that it doesn't look like a building that has a...
Oh, so it's
And I know you've already done it so that it doesn't look flat, but I want to understand the extent to which it's three-dimensional. Maybe several sections down along Swanton Street and along Main Street. You do? Or point them out to me if that's...
We can actually flip to the left. Actually, I think after the plans.
And while he's hunting, another
All the
thing-
way to the end?
At the end of the plans. Oh, here we go. Come back.
Another thing that interests me and may come up next time is, what are the materials of the facades? What are they? What color? And I think if it were possible, you might bring samples. This is what we're putting on the side of the building.
Okay.
In fact, I'd like that.
So David, we're going to talk about scheduling peer review, and one of the peer review pieces is the design review, so we'll have a peer reviewer coming in, and at that point, that'll be scheduled, and they can bring in all of that.
Okay.
And the peer reviewer can also comment on all
That's
of that.
fine. I
so.
guess I'm putting on the table the fact that I'd like to see.
That you'd like to see it
We all
now.
need to see what are the materials actually going to look like.
Yes, yeah, we'll make sure that we get that as part of the peer review process on that piece.
Yep, we're good with that. I'm good with that, Larry.
Okay, anyone else on the board have any other
I have
questions?
one.
Otherwise, oh, you do?
I
Go
didn't know
ahead.
if you were coming up to add something.
No, well, I was, but I'll take your question first. Yeah.
No, if it's germane.
Well, I was going to respectfully make the request. I know that there will need to be peer review. I saw that, for example, the stormwater drainage and whatnot, but I guess as it relates to the design, the architecture of the building, you know, we did spend a fair amount of time early on during the RFP process getting commentary from the Design Review Committee, and I understand that we just saw it today. There was another comment letter that they provided, which I think generally expressed support, but some suggested ways to maybe make it a bit better. We thought maybe the better process might be for us to just continue to work with that body to try to get feedback and refine the building design, rather than have a third-party consultant at this point. I mean, it's a little bit of a unique process in that, you know, we did kind of go through this at some degree during the RFP. The building was reviewed and, you know, received favorably at that time in terms of the the elements of it. I'm not saying that what we're showing you is exactly, that's it, we're not going to make any changes, but it seems like that forum might be a better way of us trying to address those things, rather than...
So I really appreciate all the work that you guys have done, and obviously you have, and thank you for working with Design Review Committee. I just think, given the nature of this project, the location, the focus on it, where it sits, we really should be bringing in an outside peer reviewer, and my recommendation is to have Dennis Carlone, who I'm sure we all know. He's done a really good job on another 40B project in town, and I found him to be very helpful. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, obviously, because you've already gone through a lot of things, but I just think it would bring confidence to the project to know that we have somebody coming from the outside giving us some feedback on it.
I'd like to add that I think this board has the, I'll say, right and the obligation to vet what Dennis does and what anybody presents to us on our own. I'm not saying, I mean, we give great credibility to what they say, of course.
Correct.
But I'm reserving the right to say what
But I mean, that's the
feel
point
about
of the
it.
peer review process on the 40B, so.
It's the, yes, but you agree that this group
Oh,
can review that and have our views of it.
of course,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But,
The process sounds
I-
right.
I don't
The
think-
process sounds right to me.
right, but we shouldn't shortchange
No.
our review or this process by not having a peer review on design review of this building.
Correct. Let me just repeat something you just said, because I think it's so important. This is a critically important building in this town. There's downtown, you drive out Washington Street, and this building is going to be a dominant and important feature, critical feature.
It's going to be the gateway to
of
Winchester.
the appearance of the
honestly,
town.
coming in from
And
Stone.
so we need to pay very close attention to every little aspect of it, so that when it's constructed, we'll all walk down Washington Street and be terribly proud of what was produced, and know that 100 years from now, everybody's going to enjoy it. You know that, but I'm making a speech.
Could I just ask, pardon my ignorance, but what would the scope of the design review, peer review be?
Well, we can, I mean, we're kind of out of order right now, but we
Okay,
could.
yeah, all right.
Not out of order, but like out of my sequence. But we can definitely discuss that when we get to that point.
Okay, yeah.
Because yes, obviously we have to discuss scope on all of the peer reviews.
Sorry, Mark, you had a question maybe?
Yeah, mine is maybe for the sake of a lot of folks here is, assuming this moves forward, what's the contemplated kind of build schedule and timeline? As best as you can reckon. Yeah.
Ron, you wanna-
But
yeah.
we're also going to get a scope from the peer reviewers, who are going to kind of design what they see as it, and then we can whittle down if we think it's more expansive than we need. But we're going to rely on Dennis, as well as the peer reviewers that are doing other stuff for us, to define scope, and if we want to trim it up or expand it, then fine. But we generally rely on the peer reviewers to tell us what they think they should review, develop a pricing, and then we have that discussion. I don't think it's wrong for us to say, hey, we definitely need to look at these things, but I wouldn't fix it here before we hear from Dennis.
Agreed.
Thank you for that. I had one other question.
So just,
And mine, Jay, wasn't necessarily related to the peer reviews, just more of
Timeline.
yeah, when you get to the point where this is ready to build, what are we thinking about, right?
so I think it all depends upon how quickly we get through this process, right? So
Right.
assuming that we get through the process sometime over the summer, fall, I think that we would need to engage in the cleanup of the property. There's some environmental issues. I don't think anyone's surprised by that, just given the prior history of the site. So that would need to be done over the winter months. I think we'd be looking at building permits probably sometime in the spring of '26, so March, April timeframe of '26, and then construction would start, sometime after that, so a month or two after, and then, anticipate that construction would run for probably about a year and 3 months, so that helps.
Yep.
Okay. Everyone else have questions? Okay. So for the board, we've
Questions or?
Oh, would you have some questions? Oh, go ahead. Hop in.
Is this on? Do you push the button? Or?
Yeah.
So I just have a general question. What's driving the unit count? How did you arrive at 60 units? Obviously, you went through a long process to get there.
Unit count came into economics is a lot of it. The price of the land, return on investment, and to make the numbers work. How big the site was and how many cars you could park. Commercial space. So all of those factored in together. The affordability component that the city was looking for factored into it. So I wouldn't say there's any one thing that drove it, but certainly economics, certainly the affordability, certainly the size of the building, how many cars you could park. So all of those factored in.
And are you comfortable sort of economically at the 60 units? I guess I'll frame my question a little bit more. It looks like you have, a gable, like could be a half, fourth floor or something that's not going to have any units in it.
Yeah, I mean, that was and Larry can speak to this, it was kind of a false to cover utility. Mechanicals on the roof, so it was kind of a false roof line. When we were speaking with the town fathers and when we were going through this process, they indicated they'd like to keep in the scope of what the neighborhood looked like, 2.5, 3 stories. It was clear to us that nobody wanted to see 4 stories at the time. So that's what drove that.
And you have some, maybe a little bit bigger units. Is that?
They range from 700 square feet all the way up to 1,500 square feet. There was no studios, they're all one bedrooms. One bedrooms typically are about 800 roughly. The 2 bedrooms were 900 to 1,000, and the 3 bedrooms were 13 to 1,500.
Okay. I guess what I'm driving at or what I'm curious about, I mean, we have, we don't get into this, but your construction costs might go up over the near term, geopolitical sort of things going on, things like this, right?
We know they've gone up.
So, yeah, so, obviously, whatever happens, we want the project to be viable, I would think.
Yeah.
So, it seems like you've considered that, and you have some buffer in this sort of 60-unit design.
We know the parameters, we know, interest rates, inflation, rents have gone up somewhat, so we've taken all this into consideration. It's somewhat tight. There's, it's tight, and we all know that. I mean, rentals, when you incorporate a 40B project with 25% affordables in a small, for this type of building, 40B is typically 100, 200 units, and they can make the numbers work a little bit because of scale. Something this size makes it a little bit more difficult, so I think we've incorporated a lot of it. We've kept with the design, we've kept with what has been asked of us. We think we have a nice-looking building. At the same time, the economics are important to us. I mean, we're at a level that, if the board came back to us and said, we want $1 million mitigation here, we want $1 million over here, we want you to do this, we want you to... This isn't the type of project that'll support that.
Thank you.
You want me to read them all in or just... All set?
I'm good.
Okay. all set for now.
All right.
I need a motion. We have several correspondence that came in. One from Design Review Committee, one from Engineering, one from the Building Commissioner, and one from the Town Planner. And we also have one that came in from a resident. So I'll just describe briefly. These will be online. You can review them. Design Review Committee, the design narrative is well thought, appreciate limiting height to 3 stories, elevation drawings and proposed materials may not wear well and appear trendy, drawings are incomplete, additional attention to facades necessary, facades appear too busy, related thoughts about simplifying the facades, this is all going to be a matter of record, so you can take a look at all of this. The engineering comments is their intent to engage peer reviewers for stormwater management analysis, erosion and sediment control, soils management, drainage design, and utility review. They're suggesting VHB, and transportation and site circulation analysis. They're proposing to use tool design. These firms are recommended based on their knowledge of the town. They have familiarity with the town, the streets, the sites. And they've assisted with other peer reviews on other projects. If it's amenable to this board, the engineering department will reach out to each firm to obtain more detailed scope and price proposal. We also have a comment from the town planner. They're concerned about the design of the project, and they would like either a peer review or use the expertise of the Design Review Committee on the building's design. And lastly, our building commissioner, Tom Kennedy, he's the one that oversees the construction development. So because of this large-scale proposal, he is requiring a third-party review before issuance of any building permit, pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, Section 53G. And then I'll read this last correspondence from Alyssa Loring, and I'm going to read this into the record. Dear Zoning Board of Appeals, Select Board, and Ms. Rudolph, I live at 30 Florence Street along a very popular path for children walking to and from Morocco, McCall, and the high school. I have concerns about the planned 60-unit residential commercial building at the Swanton, Washington corner. I'm excited that the town is adding housing, including affordable housing, but I have concerns related to the lack of planning for traffic in an already crowded area. With the additional traffic on Washington and Swanton streets from this 60-unit residential building plus commercial space, I'm concerned about the impact to the children walking along Florence, which is likely to become more of a cut-through for vehicles. We have speeding cars who cut down Irving or Harvard and onto Florence going to Swanton to avoid the lights at the Swanton intersection. We need to add speed bumps or resident-only signs with enforcement to slow down, reduce the traffic during the times when there are hundreds of children walking along Florence. I read in the traffic impact analysis that an estimated additional 365 vehicles are projected from this project, which is not an insignificant percentage compared to the current traffic. I also read that there are no planned roadway improvements. This is exceptionally concerning with the volume of pedestrians crossing Swanton Street on a daily basis to go to and from school. I'm also concerned about pedestrians crossing Swanton to get to the high school, which has already issues with motorists yielding to the flashing yellow lights outside of the diner. The crossing at Swanton and Holland is just dangerous. About 60% of the time we are walking, cars will stop, and the other 40% of the time they rush through the flashing yellow lights. It's only a matter of time before a child is injured from irresponsible drivers. We need the project team to come up with a solid plan alongside the safety officer to make sure our children are safe walking to and from school. We can't wait for something fatal to happen before we take action on safety. Thank you for your attention, Alyssa Loring Tirella, and she just has her number here. So do I have a motion from the board to accept these correspondence?
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Hi, Mark Anderson.
Aye, Dorothy Simboli.
I, David Fagenbaum.
Next, we're going to, I guess we can talk briefly about the peer review. You just heard what the various town officials and boards and committees would like to do. Obviously, town council is suggesting we go ahead and let them propose the scope, and then we can have a discussion about that.
Yeah, so I think one way at this, and I don't know when we're going to continue this, I think
We have to talk.
rather than bring the scopes back here and then take all that time to do it, if perhaps, Dorothy, you get designated by the board to maybe sign off on those scopes, but we don't have to. Otherwise, we do have to get back together if you want to have the whole board approve them. If we want to get peer review going sooner, it's good to get some work done through a designee of the board on getting those scopes done and those contracts signed. So we have to sign contracts with each of them and get the money deposited. So it speeds things up a little bit if we do that. Otherwise, if the board wants to review the scopes, then we're going to have to, we won't be able to sign anyone up until next time.
That helps. I just want to make sure I understood that. So we can basically designate, if we so choose, one of us to
If you so choose. Not everyone so chooses. So I'm
go
just,
and develop that scope and then come back, and we don't have to do this in a...
So that's on the scope, but not the substance of the actual.
that's right.
No, it's just setting the
It's
scope.
just so we can get people signed,
I'm
so
totally
it saves
okay
the
with
applicant.
You're
Because once we
okay
get,
assigning
with
it to
that?
one person?
Assigning to one person, one of the people on this board, the interaction with Jay and the consultant to set the scope,
Presumably, Jay, we
in with engineering as
and
well.
whoever else
Yeah.
needs to be.
Because engineering said that they could facilitate
Yeah.
getting scopes for civil and traffic.
But only to set the scope at this stage.
Yeah.
Right,
And-
correct.
And then
That
we'll-
way, I mean, the scopes are going to be pretty tried and true. I'm not
Yeah, that's
super
fine.
concerned about it. And that way, there could start to be some dialogue between now and the next session with the professionals on the Melanson team, rather than taking a month out of our schedule before we do that.
Perfect. So do I have a motion?
I move.
What do you move?
Do we move the? I can't articulate it well.
So one question maybe before we do a motion, and maybe Jay, you're the right person for this, is does that need to be one designee, or do we want to spread the
No,
love a little
you
bit so
could,
Dorothy
you
doesn't
could,
have to feel all the
you
pain?
could spread it around if you want, like if you wanted
I'm looking
to.
out for our chair.
Yeah.
No,
so
that'd be fine.
Again, I think with the exception of the architectural and the design review, which could, as get a little bit more creative on what they're looking at, civil and traffic are going to be pretty straightforward. No surprises there. So however you want to do it, whoever you want to designate, if you want to break it
well,
up a
I
little.
think first let's make sure we know what our population of design or peer
What
reviews
are-
are, right? So
okay.
we've got traffic, civil.
Stormwater management, well, civil and stormwater management.
Yeah,
are the same,
that's
yeah.
all going to be in the civil.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. So it's really
We have construction, the building commissioner has a,
That's going to, I think what he's suggesting is a condition at the end to help him with the inspectional process, to help support him.
Okay.
I don't think he's thinking about interim peer review. I think he's looking at, to make sure that we include a process in the comprehensive permit that assists him with the inspectional stuff.
compliance of everything that
Yeah,
happens.
and you'll recall that I think we even did this in one of the other 40Bs we worked on, where our civil engineer got involved, but we could also work with other kind of clerk of the works kind of people to assist Tom in doing that. That's not a front end,
so we don't need to discuss scope on that either. Okay.
not on that, not yet.
And then environmental impact?
My guess is we'd have, if civil flags something, this site does has a history. The town has already used VHB for that. So to the extent it impacts things that are arising under zoning, which I'm not sure it does, because it would have to be arising under the local stuff. There's a whole process for that. That's been ongoing for years and will continue to be ongoing, whether or not that fits within your jurisdiction or not. But certainly VHB will be able to flag, because they have a full file on it, anything that comes up. And they would have team members also that could address that and have already addressed it to the extent it impacts what the zoning board is doing.
Okay, so for engineering, it would be, I'm sorry, for environmental, it would be VHB?
Yeah, they're already working on it.
Okay. And then we just have design review?
Yeah, so you'd identified Dennis as the person that you'd want to do. So I think there were some questions on this side of the table on scope. So if we can get him to provide us a scope, send it over to Mark, see what his team thinks. Obviously, there's a goal of keeping things moving while protecting the board's rights to review all that peer review.
On design, I'd like to
I figured you would.
have some role.
Well, we can only do one.
Right, no,
One
do
of
you
you,
want to
so-
be, you want to be the point person on design?
Yeah.
In terms of figuring out the scope?
Scope. The scope, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
And
comfortable with that.
I'm happy to review it. I mean, David has a lot of experience and knows what he wants, so let's make sure that it, and then I can review it to make sure it stays within the bounds of 40B too, David, so we can work on
Yeah.
that.
So I'll respond, I'll wait till you engage me on that question.
Well, I'm not engaging anyone. The board is going to vote to
Yeah.
Appoint.
We're going to designate you as the point
by
person.
motion to help develop the scope for the design peer review.
Help whom?
The designee, Dennis Carlone.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yes,
Okay, we agree.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
So I'll,
so I move to designate David Feigenbaum as the point person in developing the scope for design review with the peer consultant preferably Dennis Carlone.
yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, Mark Anderson.
Aye, Dorothy Simboli.
Hi, David Feigenbaum.
Okay. Point person for the other things? Do you care?
Rock, paper, scissors? No, I don't.
You want it? You want me to do it?
There's two more, so if you want, we could.
And there,
Oh,
I
there's
think,
tra-
I
Yeah,
think
traffic and then basically
yeah,
everything civil
and
related.
I think you'll be working with engineering, which already has a good feel for what they're going to want to
Yeah.
see there for both. So, but yeah, designate a point person to sign off on it, doesn't matter.
Can I designate you?
Sure.
Okay. I move to designate Mark Anderson as the point person in developing the scope for traffic, site, and environmental impact with VHB and Tool.
Sure.
Can I give you traffic too? Is that okay? Because it's all under one
Jay's
umbrella?
going, they all- yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, Mark Anderson.
Aye, Dorothy Simboli.
Hi, David Feigenbaum.
Okay. Lastly, they mentioned, I'm only bringing it up because they mentioned that they were not an arborist and they have damaged trees. Do we feel like we're equipped to be making those calls? Or do we want to have somebody else look at the trees?
Well, who normally serves as tree warden around here?
We don't have one. We have
I mean, it looks like I'm assuming that there's
it Tom?
a complete
I think it's Tom.
it's Tom?
Somebody
complete
does.
change in all the
somebody
trees,
does
right?
serve.
There's nothing being preserved?
There's some being preserved, I think, but yeah, but the ones along the
I mean, we could bring in,
There's somebody who serves as the tree warden in Winchester. It's probably Tom.
Carla's saying no, but it's
no.
someone on Concom.
My guess is it's someone over at DPW.
Likely, yeah.
Yeah, usually is.
Yeah.
Town now has a tree committee.
Yep, I knew that. Yeah, we have a tree committee.
But they're not going to, they don't review health of trees.
I know,
They're
exactly.
They might comment on this, but I think
DPW is likely.
we could solicit from I'm not sure we need peer review for that.
Right,
but
yeah.
I think we should solicit input from whoever's serving as the tree warden over at DPW right now.
Okay. Great. Okay. I need a motion to approve I guess we accepted into the record, but a motion to approve town engineer Matt Schumann's request for traffic, site, civil engineering, and environmental peer review.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I, Mark Anderson.
I, Dorothy Simboli.
I, David Feigenbaum.
Okay. Zoning board requests the town officials work with the consultants to facilitate the review. Scope of the work should be submitted to town officials. This is just an overview. Yeah, we already did this. I don't need to read this, right? Okay. Do we want to schedule, I guess we should schedule the next meeting date?
Yeah, are you reserving public comment for the next session, or are you going to take a little bit in the time we have left?
I'm going to take a little bit with the time we have left if we can.
Do we want to do a site visit too, or is that?
We can either schedule it. Do you want to do it now? Do you want to schedule a site visit now that we can go?
It's okay.
The sooner rather than later?
Yeah.
Either way.
Okay.
Would you like us to attend with the board, or?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously can't discuss anything, but you can explain to us,
Sure.
and we just sit there and observe.
We'll very carefully walk around the site
Yeah.
with our lips tight.
Oh, okay. So the site visit would be open to the public as well?
It's just to your point, there's no deliberations happening.
There's no deliberation, there's no conversation other than you guys explaining to us where things are. So just so that everyone knows. So what date are people available?
Well, we should probably avoid tomorrow. I'm not sure the weather's going to be that great.
Yeah. I'd say selfishly, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are best, but
Okay.
But not Memorial Day.
not Memorial Day. Yeah. So
Wednesday would be preferable to
I don't know if that
Friday.
means the 28th.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
if
do
the
it.
28th is the next first Wednesday.
Yeah.
In which case,
Okay.
I have a conflict. In
Okay.
the
Okay.
afternoon, anyway. I could do it in the morning at certain times.
consult two calendars.
And you don't have to do it all together if you don't want to. So,
It's gonna,
I can do morning. I'm free from 10 to 1.
I can do morning on the 28th.
on which day?
On the
28th.
28th.
You can do morning, I can kill this other appointment.
I'm 10 to 1, so whatever.
I think we can handle
obviously,
it.
So
works for
10
them, too.
o'clock
Sure.
on the 28th?
Does that work for at least a 10 o'clock on the
10
28th?
10
Or
o'clock.
at least a subset of however we can make it?
Yes. I
Okay.
think we'll plan on 10 o'clock on the 28th. Okay.
Harut, Andrew, are you able to make that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
All right. 5:20.
Yes, we'll meet at the corner of Swanton and
I
Washington.
think it's open enough we can see each other.
Okay, schedule next meeting date.
You might want to meet down the street at the dry cleaners with his parking and not on the corner. The old
Oh, you mean when we meet on the 28th?
Park by
Yeah,
the
we'll
grill,
park by the dry cleaners, okay.
Mexican place.
safety.
He wants to take us to
you.
the dry cleaners.
Check out the environmental issues.
He wants to show us the worst part of the property.
So next meeting date?
Yes, next meeting date.
Do we have to, I assume we have to notice it too, so we can't.
no,
Oh, okay.
no,
So
this
we're not
is it.
Constrained by, okay.
This is it.
All right.
Yep.
And I would say that the next meeting, I'd like to hear from the other boards and committees, Mr. Serbear, anybody else who, like any other interested officials in town, to the extent that they want to give us some detail. So I would say that's at the next meeting, and obviously residents that don't get to say anything tonight.
I want to make the point that when the word goes to the other boards about participating, that it would be really good if they actually sent somebody to our meeting, which they don't often do. They'll send notes or comments, but actually being here I find helpful.
I think.
I guess that's what you meant.
Yes, yeah. So,
But it
I
should-
mean, to the extent that they come, yeah, and,
They should come.
right, no, people, the various town committees and boards are very interested in commenting on the project. So when would the next meeting be?
When's our next meeting?
12th. Which we shouldn't try to do this at the regular.
No, it's going to be too quick to get anything substantive done.
Right.
And
19th is Juneteenth. Are we stuck on Thursdays? Is that, I don't know, room-wise?
Oh,
Monday, we need to stay away from Mondays.
what about Sons of Italy?
I'm not sure if that's.
Do you want to try and do the next meeting here and then a future meeting at Sons of Italy?
Yeah, I don't know if we can do it at Sons of Italy. I don't
Right,
think
exactly,
it's-
yeah.
I thought that it needs to be that's a private, does it matter, Jay?
no, as long as it's publicly accessible and we can get cable in there, I'm not too concerned about that. I mean, they don't have a stake in the project, so it doesn't.
All right.
Doesn't.
We just
concern
thought
me.
it would be convenient, convenient and give more room for the local, for the residents that live in this area. But maybe the next meeting we do here, and then like the subsequent meeting, we go to Sons of Italy.
I think we can gauge it based on what we see, right? I think we fit in this room tonight.
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll come back here then. Okay, what day?
Well, the 12th was already taken. 19th is Juneteenth, so that's out. So 26th is the next Thursday, which is at least, 5 weeks away. So gives us some time.
Yep.
I don't know if that's too much, Jay, or
No, I don't. I think it's probably about right because we're going to want to have. I think you should pick among the three main areas. Maybe if the goal would be to maybe start traffic back and forth there on that, a little bit more. I would pick a topic because the thought that we're just going to get all of that discussion also allows them to be a little more economical on who they're inviting to answer questions.
Okay.
So,
Boy, I totally agree with that.
I think that's an appropriate time frame because someone's going to have to decide whether you choose
give us time
civil.
to engage them, right?
We got to engage them. They got to start reviewing plans, reports, having that back and forth, maybe issuing a report. If not, at least having dialogue so questions can be raised and there's something productive where we hear reactions from both sides.
So why don't we say at that meeting, we'll definitely do stormwater management analysis
Sure.
and
as
environmental?
Well, again, I'm not sure how much environmental, that's a big topic for this particular site. I certainly think site civil, if you want to do civil engineering.
My understanding is the reference to environmental is just that VHB has history with the environmental condition of the property, which does have some relationship to drainage and stormwater, so, but kind of all under one umbrella there. But
Yeah, I think that the lion's share of the civil engineering is going to be the stormwater stuff. But I think that was a big chunk of the presentation, the initial presentation tonight. So if you wanted.
Is 5 weeks enough time to have a substantive conversation on that? Or is traffic something that might be faster? I'm just trying to be mindful. I don't want to get together.
There's certainly more
Traffic's gonna be slower.
variables in engineering.
I would do simpler earlier.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Give him more time to do the harder ones before we get back together to talk about it, or else we're just going to get together and say it's not done yet.
That would be I would knock out traffic first.
Okay.
I don't think traffic is the simplest.
Well, it's not so much that it's simple in terms of making decisions on it, but in terms of
The analysis. And
the
all that.
analysis, what they're looking at, the data that they're doing, I think there's less variables. That's just my own personal experience. And this is, it's a complex drainage system here where none exists now. The engineers are going to be digging in on that.
A lot of calculations,
But
yeah.
it's your meeting. If you'd rather start with civil, then start with civil.
I'd rather be efficient, and if it's going to take longer to do the other ones, to Brian's point, I'd rather start with the ones where we can actually have something substantive and hopefully get to a conclusion on it. Namely traffic, right? And Jay, I'll take your advice.
But
Right?
is traffic going to take a whole meeting?
Well, you got public comment too, so
I would.
Well, I'm just Okay, I agree with you.
And if it's not resolved at that meeting, we can always come back to it
Of course.
later.
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
Of course.
Let's do
Sometimes
traffic.
takes,
So-
a couple rounds, absolutely.
Let's do traffic, because I think that's probably the neighbors.
So we're
That's on
looking at
the
the 26th.
Is Wednesday not doable, Wednesday, the 25th, or?
I can do Wednesday, the 25th. We need to make sure,
The room is available.
well, yeah, we also need to make sure Tool Design is available as well, who we don't have here.
The 25th isn't good for me.
Okay, so it's
26th.
26th is the Thursday, yeah.
I'm sure they'll be able to get someone available.
Okay.
okay. Does the 26th work for you?
26
Right.
doesn't work for me.
Does not work for you?
Do we want to go
Can't
out?
throw Jeff right in, because it's not like he's
I was gonna say,
busy.
do we
or
want to go out a week, but the 3rd is probably not a great night to get together?
Well, then we could
Or the second.
we can do a different discussion that night.
Is
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 24th? I think, Carl, you say Mondays are not good here in this room?
Correct.
Yeah, because select board, yeah. 4th is good for me.
It's good for me. T-ball ends the week before, so.
Yes, 24th I can do.
David?
Come on, David.
You can cancel the dinner.
Not
David.
ideal, but I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's going to be traffic.
Focus on traffic. And I suspect, Jay, if we don't have an answer from Tool by some reason, we just get together and say, we'll continue this, or we have to meet still, right? 'Cause
We still have to
scheduling
meet,
something.
but I think that in
We
terms
can-
of agenda setting, that's not a deliberation per se, so I think
Right, we
I think
can
we can
change.
dodge and weave.
We can sub in something else. We can
just wanted
change it
to-
to something
yeah.
else.
Okay.
So just to be clear, it's the
Be economical with everyone's
24th
time.
at 7 o'clock.
7 p.m.
Okay?
And what are we going to take it tonight? Can you stay till 10?
To do what?
Just, can we schedule it 7 to 10?
You mean that night? Could I stay till 10?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So 7 to 10 p.m.
Do we need a motion for that, Carl?
Ask the public comment.
You can take the motion now if you want. We're not, yeah.
Yeah, I'll move to continue on the 24th,
After we
7 to 10.
take public comment. Yeah, okay.
Am I understanding you're going to get a peer review done for
We're gonna try.
traffic before then and have it at that meeting? So
Okay.
That's the goal.
whoever's going to be on that is going to be, letting them know that.
I've emailed them before, I think, for some other one, so I'll email you and we can coordinate.
Yeah, we can
Get
be
them.
in touch with Matt Schuman tomorrow.
Yeah, get them going. Yep. So we can move now, we can wait till after public comment. We've got 15 minutes of time, so we're going to get, 2 or 3 comments, possibly.
Okay.
I say we wait till, give a couple people a comment and then close it by
Okay.
scheduling.
Right, exactly. I just wanted to comment, though, just so that everyone here knows, so there isn't like it's not renoticed.
The abutters won't get another.
So the abutters don't get another notice of each continuing meeting. It does get posted on the town website, so you will see it. And obviously, you can hear it tonight. So on 7 p.m. Tuesday, June 24th, we're going to be meeting back here to discuss, hopefully, traffic. If not, there'll be a different agenda item. And the site visit is also open to the public, and that's May 28th.
So site visits aren't necessarily open to the public unless
Oh, okay, I'm
unless
sorry.
they say it is. So
I
site visits are
apologize.
your opportunity, but that's up to the applicant. I just don't want to confine them. It's not a posted meeting. So that's.
Okay, I apologize for that.
Applicants for liability or whatever reason sometimes choose not to, so I just don't want to.
We don't own the land, you do, so.
Oh,
I just, it's not necessarily a public event, so I don't, it's up to whoever's securing the town, the property, and
I'd recommend we just have it be us.
It's just going to be
That's
us?
my 2 cents.
Okay.
A, from a safety standpoint, and B, just from a timeliness standpoint.
Right,
We have our
being
public
able
meeting-
to
we have our-
walk
we
around
have-
the
Yeah, we
site.
have these as the public meetings, so
Yeah, okay.
otherwise we're shepherding
Okay.
25, whatever people are in.
There's a PIP associated with this site, so I suspect that there is notification of the public required.
Okay, I'll take that comment in a second. I also need, can I have a motion to accept that, the correspondence from Alyssa Loring into the record?
Oh, I thought we did that, sorry. So moved.
Second.
Aye, Mark Anderson.
Hi, Dorothy Simboli.
Hi, David Feigenbaum.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm just curious, did you read that because it was a late edition? Then you're not
I
going to read
read
every
it
time there's a-
because it was from a resident, and it's important that the residents are heard. So if they don't have the opportunity to get up and speak, I'm going to read in what they have.
Anybody sends a letter in, we're going to read it into the record as opposed to just put it on the,
At least summarize it.
Unless there are 500 of them.
Yeah, or if it covers the same topic as what I just read, if it's duplicative, I may just summarize it and say, have another one concerned about safety.
okay.
Okay, so I guess we have 10 minutes to hear from residents.
And this is, the residents should know that this is not the only time.
Correct.
So
Yeah, so if you come on, what did I just say?
24th.
June 24th, 6:24 at 7 p.m.
We will hopefully be talking about traffic.
Yep, and then we can also take additional comments.
Comments on anything, it doesn't have to be restricted to
Nope.
traffic or anything.
Correct. Everyone, and we're going to, I mean, this is a 180-day process, so we're going to be meeting many times, and you will have the opportunity to speak if you don't get a chance to speak at this meeting or the next one, and also feel free to email Carla with any comments. So does anyone want to come up and speak?
I have a question.
Just come on up and state your name and address, please.
Anne Marie Hill, 4 Magnolia Way. Just briefly, I thought we would hear from an environmental engineer tonight because we were talking about it's a gas station, a former gas station, a former dry cleaning facility. I'm assuming there's been a 21E site assessment. When will we get information about the plans for remediation and protecting the neighborhood during that time period or during that process?
Is there...
Well, I imagine we will probably get a more full, this was just more of the meet and greet introduction of the project. I imagine once the engineers start, the two engineering firms start talking to each other in earnest, there'll be a little bit more, get into a little more granular detail on
So
those
the public
things.
will have an opportunity to attend and hear about that process?
Right.
Okay.
But noting, of course, that the zoning board's jurisdiction is not going to extend too deep into the environmental stuff. There's other entities that work on that. They're just handling kind of the local, normal zoning kind of permits here.
All right.
So
So whose meetings should we attend if we have questions about that process?
I'm not sure what else will be before us on that, if it would be the select board or otherwise, if there's other local permits. There's a lot of state level activity on those matters. And I'm not saying the zoning board isn't going to tangentially touch on those, but under 40B, what we have before us here, they're more on the zoning. There'll certainly be some fair discussion on that here.
Here, in the zoning board?
There will be.
All right, so if we have questions about that process, this is still a good place to come?
To a certain
Okay.
degree, for sure.
Okay, all right. And then the other question I had is, you mentioned in your presentation the telephone poles and lamp posts and so forth. This site is going to be completely excavated and torn down. Are you going to run the electric underground so that you're not putting more telephone poles in, right? Because all of your designs don't show, I mean, it's very pedestrian friendly, right? You're not seeing those poles. So those will be gone as part of the plan? They'll be run underground, the electric?
From the poles, they'll be run underground.
Could you use the microphone, please?
No.
Here you go.
I mean, we will not be taking down telephone poles and running electric underground from pole,
But there's not going to be wires going from the poles over to the building?
no, underground from the poles to the building. Yes.
All right, very good. And then I guess the other question I had was that turning radius, coming down Washington, you're turning into those 41 spots underneath the courtyard. That'll be an entry and exit, right? So people will be coming
Yes.
in and exiting.
Yes.
And when you're in there, I thought one of you had said you would be able to access the storefronts from underground, and then somebody else said, no, you'd have to come outside to access the storefronts.
All covered.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's two different levels. There's an entrance off of Washington Street that
Okay.
goes to 40-some-odd spaces.
Okay,
That's what they were talking about. You would walk out there to get to the sidewalk.
okay.
The ones in the basement are residential. That's off of Swanton.
Okay, that's coming off of Swanton, but the ones
Yes.
for Washington?
Yes.
So you would drive in, park, and then you'd come back out?
You would walk out the sidewalk along the building to get to the
into
front.
Okay.
Which I think we had said was a covered walkway, which
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
part of that.
You also mentioned stairs, like to get up to the pedestrian area. I assume it's handicap accessible. There's going to be a ramp or
Yes, it
something
will
for
be
all of those
ADA
areas.
accessible. I think what Mike says is Washington Street goes downhill, but the building's going to be level.
Mm-hmm.
So as you walk downhill, there'll be a little stair down here and a little stair down here.
And
So
but there'll be ramps also for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, awesome. And I think that answers all of my questions. My biggest concern was the environmental stuff, but it sounds like that will be discussed in more detail at another meeting. All right, awesome. I think it looks beautiful. And your brother built my house.
Sue Carney had her hand up. We can get,
Hi, I'm Susan Carney, 9 Winter Street. I'm precinct 2, and I'm also a town meeting member. What I'm not hearing is that, so we're talking a lot about Swanton and Washington, but there's also Swanton and Main Street. Swanton Street is a raceway. And I am concerned, is there any consideration for another traffic study? Now, I'm hearing that the last study was done in 2023, some kind of calming measures. And I'm not sure if this board knows that I was recently at a select board meeting, and they're considering a pilot program for commercial haulers, bringing traffic from out of Winchester into Winchester. And they're still working, it would probably start this summer into October. And they're considering, we're not sure how many trucks at this point, but this is just a pilot program. For the future, we don't know how many trucks, what time of day, so that's going to add a lot of additional traffic. And the other thing they talked about, they actually did a study, now I'm not sure of the numbers, but they did counted on a Saturday, the number of cars that go to the transfer station or up and down Swanton Street on a Saturday. It was over 2,000 cars. So that's just something to think about. And there are a lot of concerns, safety issues and traffic issues. So I would ask the board if maybe we could have another traffic safety calming, to look at calming measures for Swanton Street going forward. And it's about the whole street, both ends. That's just not, where the building is going. And the consideration of also, I love Lisa's letter of the safety of the children, and there are a lot of kids that walk back and forth from, the neighborhoods, to the high school and vice versa. And I think there's also a lot of bus stops now along Swanton Street because of the changes in the elementary school. And will that change in the future? I'm not really sure. But anyway.
okay, thank you for your comment.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate concern, and yes, having another traffic study done.
More
we're
recent
obviously,
one,
well,
up to
we're going to
date.
be using, so when we meet the next time, hopefully we will be discussing traffic, and we'll be bringing in, tool that's already done a lot of our traffic studies, and then we can discuss, maybe, if you come to that meeting, you can share that comment again. I will definitely ask that for
commercial.
you. Yeah, and then we need to talk to, I'm not exactly sure what the schedule is on the
Yeah, it's a
commercial
pilot
haulers. But
program, and they're just going to run it, I think, if you're talking about the commercial haulers. I think it was, the proposed is August to October. And then from there, and how, it depends on how it goes, but then the question is, how many trucks, how big are the trucks, how big are the load, what time of day? That's just going to add a lot more.
It is going to add a lot more. We do need to be considerate of the developer, and that it's, the developer, the commercial hauling, the commercial trash hauling is separate and apart from this development.
Right.
And so I understand your concern of the combined traffic.
If you're talking about traffic and safety issues, well, that's a big part of it. And it's that, but it's also the residents. You have a lot of side streets, as I think Lisa brought up, and bus stops. There's the nursing homes along, there's a lot of people employees in and out, ambulances in and out. So there's a lot to consider. Again, it's just not about the end of the street, Swanton, Washington. It's also about Swanton, Main Street. So,
thank you so
anyway,
much for your
thank you.
comments. Diab-Jarius, please.
Good evening, Diab-Jarius, 26 Canal Street. I have some quick questions. I hope the answers are quick as well. So for the accessible units, are these fully ADA accessible?
Yes.
And is there an elevator in the building?
Yes.
There is an elevator.
Yes.
Excellent. And then the number of 3-bedroom units. I know that there is a minimum required by the state for 40Bs. Have you met that minimum, or are you exceeding that?
Or at least meeting it.
Yeah, so there was a question in the audience about there seem to be a lot more 1-bedroom units, and I understand that people like them, but the state does require you to have a certain number of family-sized units.
We have 6 3-bedrooms, and 2 of them are affordables.
That's the standard.
That's the
10% is
10%?
the standard by
Okay.
the state. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Birgit Bishop, 8 Hancock Street.
Say that your name again?
Birgit Bishop, 8 Hancock. So I recently moved to the area 2 years ago, and I live right across from a condo unit where majority of people have moved out and they rent out their units. And it caused excessive parking problems on our street. Overnight parking is a major problem. And we're only 2 streets away from the intersection. And I heard that this parking is just barely the minimum. So I raised that as a potential problem and concern. And then Morocco School is the oldest school in this area. And if we add this for family, I worry about the effects of what it will do for the school and how they can accommodate these children and the influx of students in the area, the amount of students going to the school. I voiced the same concerns that was written in that letter of the safety of children. My daughter can't walk. She can't ride her bike down Swanton Street. There's no safe bike path. Even though there's that intersection that they stop all the lights, they've had cars go even when it's supposed to be an all stop. And I don't know what they did with the painting of the lines, but they made it so there's like literally just inches on the right side so that there's like no space for biking at all. And so, and then trying to walk down Washington Street, there's always cars turning onto Washington Street from the side streets. So I don't feel it's either safe for them on wherever they go. There's no cross guard either at the Swanton and Washington Street intersection. So I point these out because with an increase of housing development there, we're going to have more children, and that's just something I want to point out as a concern. I love the idea that we're going to get additional housing. I just want us to think about those as we continue this development. And then my last thing is that I found it interesting where the entrance was on Washington Street, because almost right across from it is the Park Street extension. And so we literally have Hancock Street, and then from Hancock Street there's another street across from that on Washington, and then it's Park Extension, and then it'll be the new entrance. So we literally have these back and forth of entrances of cars coming in and out, and then we have the major intersection, and I can foresee that being potential congestion as well, and I just wanted to point that out as we're doing the traffic. So just wanted to raise those as issues. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Repeat your name one more time.
It's Birgit, B-I-R-G-I-T, Bishop. Mhm.
Yes, come on.
Hi, my name is Jean Chastain. I live at 266 Washington Street. I've lived at that address for 50 years, so I've seen a lot and have a lot of observations and experience. First, I'd like to say I'm very excited about a residential development. I think we do need the housing stock, and I think the renditions look great. However, I am not in favor of any commercial or retail development. According to the projections for the traffic, it creates 50% of the additional traffic. I live on the corner of Oak and Washington. I can hardly get out of my street. And so I live and breathe this several times a day. I might have to wait for 25 cars to go by before I can turn right, and turning left is very difficult. I did submit to Carla a series of questions and the background of why I'm very concerned. And I really think that the number of units need to have the appropriate number of parking spaces. And I can't figure out for the life of me how 6,000 feet of commercial space is going to be supported by 14 slots. All of those drivers will be looking to park on the side street. So there's been no discussion about the impact on the additional traffic or parking on the side streets. It's already tough. I get the fire department knocking on my door when there are cars parked at the top of Oak Street saying, "We cannot pass by." Those aren't people that are visiting me, but it is very scary. The streets are narrow, and when fire trucks do come down Oak Street, they back up onto Washington Street when they leave. That's how compressed the street is. So I love the idea of the residential program. There is the Swanton Street Diner on the same block. I don't know why we need to have a restaurant or retail or a coffee shop. As we know from Starbucks, people will park anywhere where they're not supposed to just to get a cup of coffee. And it really made my stomach come into my throat when I heard people talking about 15-minute parking spaces on Washington Street. That was really upsetting because we really can't take any more traffic at that location. So I know I went over 3 minutes, but I put it all in the letter, and I think there are a lot of issues in terms of finding the right balance of traffic, cars, parking, and having a beautiful building, and not having to look at that dump anymore. So, thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for 2 more. Let's go.
Thank you. I'm Joe Scotty. I'm a lifelong resident of Winchester, former town meeting member.
What's your address?
I live at 25 Robin Hood Road, but my addresses are 275, 277 Washington Street, which is going to be across from the archway where the cars will be entering and leaving on Washington Street. And I also formerly lived for 40 years at 271 Washington Street. So we've been with this project for over 10 years, going back with CVS and others. And the last speaker just stole my thunder, but I was very happy to have that happen. Unlike downtown Winchester, this is a very sensitive neighborhood, and it's a very involved neighborhood, and it's surrounded by houses on 4 sides. When there was commercial property there in the past, it was a lot of work and effort for the neighborhood to keep that under control, vis-a-vis deliveries, late hours. And I'm not saying this would occur in this instance, but break-ins, 3 o'clock a.m. trash emptying, and so forth. When they did the Washington reconstruction project some years ago, about 12 or 15 years ago, that's when the stacking lane was added as you go toward Woburn northbound to take the left onto Swanton Street. There's a little stacking lane there. At that time, they removed the parking on the right-hand side or the northbound side of the street going to Woburn. So there is only about 4 parking places there. And I have the same concerns about traffic and volume in parking. And unless I misunderstood this wonderful presentation, I've met this group of people maybe 8 or 10 years ago at the Knights of Columbus and they're back again, and I have a lot of respect for these folks. So I want to say that. But there's something I'm just not getting about the designated parking. There's 40-something on the first level, 70-something on the lower level. We're at 114, but they're not all necessarily dedicated. So I'm a little confused by that, because if I were a tenant, one of the first things I'd want to know is where's my parking? So if I had a spot, but I had to leave out, if I heard this right, be out by 7 a.m., and I come home, but that parking is or is not available to me, I'm going to park on the street somewhere and try and figure out the problem. So shouldn't it be a little bit more crystallized that the number of specified units, whatever they are, have specifically assigned parking places, and not just a comment that, well, we think we can accommodate them all in the evening and nighttime hours. It sort of doesn't work that way. Parking isn't just about safety. It's about where are we putting these cars. And we just drive around town. Any road, in the average house, more people are living in single-family homes. We've gone from 2 to 4 or 5 cars per house. So it's things to think about, and I just wanted to comment that I know many of the neighbors turned out here tonight. I'm still actively involved in that side of town. But it's a neighborhood, and the neighbors there do care. So whatever happens, when that group of stores that was there in the end operated, they had designated hours of when to open and when to close and when dumpsters could come, because they're raising families. And I have questions about light intrusion and cars pulling in and out of parking and shining on houses, or how the building itself, not the landscaping, how is the building going to be illuminated? So I'll leave it there, but it's, 10 or 12 years ago we were in this room, and it's nice to see it come back, because nobody wants a blighted area. But at the time, the CVS wasn't the right fit. It wasn't the thing. And that was a long haul. Myself and others ended up in land court, and we won that. And so I'm proud of that, and some of the people that are in this room that worked with it. But I went as an abutter. I'm here tonight as an abutter, and just to make sure that while this thing, if it goes forward and it looks beautiful and it's fine, it's got to fit into the neighborhood. It's got to fit. It's got to fit. And it may be, I have the same sentiments. It's not like downtown. The commercial just might not be the thing. It might not be. Where the patron's going to park? How's that going to work? And I think there needs to be more information on it. And thank you, folks. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I think there was one more person. Come on forward.
Mark Feblowitz, 41 Lebanon Street. I have a question about the setback from, specifically Washington Street, but also Swanton Street. What's the distance between the curb and the front of the building? And then also, what's the unimpeded walk space between the front of the retail establishments and the benches and the trees and the utility poles? So is there enough width to support having school children more than one behind the other?
I don't have the dimensions. 25 feet from the curb to the building.
25 from the feet? 25 from
Can somebody come forward with a microphone and answer?
Let's get back with a revised plan that has more specific dimensions on these.
Okay.
They're not all on the plan right now, so.
Okay. Okay, and one more question, and that is, with the safety of the pedestrians, what's being done about the entrance to exit for each of the parking places, make it more visible for the cars to see the pedestrians and vice versa, and I guess also supporting that. We did hear about supporting the pedestrians coming from the upper lot. So, but it's mostly what's going to prevent accidents there with pedestrians.
We'll look at that. We'll look at that.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one comment on that I forgot to ask. And I don't know if this is appropriate only in commercial buildings, but sometimes when on exits of parking areas, they have like a beeping system to like warn the pedestrians that there's a car coming out, if that's something that you guys could consider.
Neighbors aren't going to like
Neighbors aren't going to like
Well,
the
they
beeping.
might, yeah, exactly. Let's look at that.
At least look at it.
Oh my gosh, we're running out. We're way overdue. Ann Sarah, you've been sitting here for a while. Come on over. Yes. 3 minutes.
I'm Ann Sarah, Precinct 1. I would like to say that I'm very grateful that everybody talked about the traffic concerns, both with respect to pedestrians, but also I think there's respect to parking, we've heard, and also just general traffic concerns in the area. That's a concern of mine that I would like to be addressed, and we've heard it. Some of the things we haven't heard tonight, which are really things that I'm concerned with, but are also things that are the general abutters concerns, are stormwater runoff, and almost related are this is a contaminated site. Similar to stormwater runoff, which is above ground, there is a below ground runoff that conveys contamination. So they're related because of the slope, but one is above ground and one is below ground. So they're sort of different, but they're related, right? And I think that those are very important concerns, especially to the people that live below the site, downgrade from this site. So I don't want that to be lost.
That's not going to be lost. We're going to have a peer review specifically, and we're going to have a meeting specifically to discuss those issues.
So I'd like to hear the meeting concerning that. And really what I want to hear about all of the meetings, not just that one, is that what the people are going to say about that meeting is given to us beforehand. So in other words, what happens to us as an audience, as the people, is that the developer comes and they present materials, and we have no idea of what they're going to present. They present it, and we're left aghast. What would be more effective would be if there was some way for them to present, here is what we're going to present, here is a way for us to say, here are our questions about that. And then the meeting would be, let's look at those questions.
So let me leave some concerns for you. So what we mean by a peer review is there's going to be an outside consultant that's hired. They're going to be participating in that meeting. So it's going to be the developer, it's going to be the town engineer, it's going to be a peer review, and there's going to be somebody looking at all of those issues and bringing up all those concerns, and you'll be able to hear not just from the developer but from that review that's being done on behalf for the town and for the residents.
Sure.
So
and I think, if I may add, importantly, the documents created for that are part of the public record, are available.
That's
to
great.
be reviewed.
Let's make sure that those are available before the meeting that we have, because I have actually been in these meetings and been totally ineffective because the review was available an hour before the meeting.
And I don't think your criticism is fair. The materials about the project were circulated a long time ago.
In this case, yes. I just
So,
want to make sure
okay.
that that's going to be.
Well, I'll speak for the board and say our interest is the same as yours. We want to have this out there so
Of course it is.
so that the residents can understand what's being proposed and come here and talk about it. And I think we've done that.
Yep.
Agree.
I think it's a fair expectation that if someone's going to submit a report from the developer side responding to our peer reviewer or presenting new information, that we try and get that a week before a hearing. Sometimes it's just not possible because things are late breaking, but there should always be a goal that the parties are exchanging information that has to be critically reviewed, and so that the board has an opportunity to get that, like five business days so that everyone can look at it. Whether or not that gets on the website within 5 business days, I don't know, but certainly the board should be setting an expectation, because you're not going to be able to have questions. It's going to just slow things down for everyone. So I think everyone should be held to that standard, our reviewers and your reviewers.
Absolutely.
5 business days, that's a lot more than 1 hour.
Again, not always possible, because sometimes these peer reviewers and the applicants' reviewers are doing a lot of late-breaking review, all in the interest of moving this along.
And in defense of the clerk, I think she tries very hard to twist the arms of people who are submitting stuff. And
Thank you.
at some
Yeah.
point, it's impossible.
Okay, are we wrapping up?
We need to officially move to the meeting, for the next meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I move to continue petition, actually, is this official continuance? Yeah, move to continue petition Z-25-40B-1 to June 24th at 7 p.m. in this room.
Second.
All in favor?
I, Mark Anderson.
I, Dorothy Simboli.
Hi, David Feigenbaum.
And then we need to move to close, right?
Oh, you need to.
Do you have anything
No.
else we need to?
It's done.
Yeah.
Else we need to read it? Okay.
Jay says it's done.
It's done.
It's done.
Ready.
move to close.
Second.
I, Mark Anderson.
I, Dorothy Simboli.
Hi, David Feigenbaum.
Tom, I'll let you take care of this because